I'm a 38-year-old man who grew up in a small, tight-knit town where everyone knew everyone else's business. It was the kind of place where people still waved to their neighbors from their front porches, and Sunday potlucks were the highlight of the week. My brother Alan is just 1 year older than me. Growing up, Alan and I were inseparable. We played in the same little league baseball team, faced our parents' lectures and scoldings together, and even navigated the roller coaster ride of teenage years side by side. We understood each other on a level that only siblings can, offering a comforting presence in each other's lives. As an adult, up until a few years ago, we still shared family traditions, celebrated holidays together, and always looked out for each other no matter what. We were like two peas in a pod, sticking together through all the ups and downs life threw at us. As kids, Alan and I had always discussed our love for New York and planned to move out there. Being the oldest, he was the first one to make the bold move. I admired his courage in taking that big step, and a couple of months later, I decided to follow in his footsteps. We both found ourselves in the city that we had dreamed about, rooming together in a small apartment. We tirelessly looked for jobs so we could support ourselves, while I secured a position as a graphic designer, which was a dream come true for me. Alan found himself working as an accountant. Our jobs were not glamorous and we struggled a lot during the initial days. It wasn't easy to live in a new city working in jobs that sometimes went overtime and paid too little, but we were pretty glad to have each other to depend on. My life had taken a wonderful turn a year ago when I met my amazing wife. Lisa was a single mom to her then 2-year-old son, Mark. Although I had a stable job, I still wasn't looking to settle down, but everything changed when I met her. I had never imagined marrying a single mother, but once I started interacting with her son, Mark, I instantly fell in love with how adorable he was. I just couldn't fathom why Lisa's ex-boyfriend, who was the father of Mark, could abandon his own child and not even bother contacting them. After several months of dating, I knew she was the one. Her kindness and love won me over, and I proposed to her with my mother's ring. She said yes, and we have had a wonderful marriage for the last 6 years. Her son has quickly become a treasured part of my world, and I have embraced the role of being his stepfather. The love and care I feel for this young boy is just like what I would have felt for him if he were my biological child. I had always dreamed of having my own family one day, and I absolutely love them both to bits. Meanwhile, Alan had always held some reservations about Lisa and didn't shy away from sharing his concerns with me since the first day he met her. He never quite liked the fact that she was a single mother, and his disapproval had come up in our conversations more times than I could count. I often found myself brushing it off, thinking it was just Alan's way of being an overprotective older brother worrying about my happiness. We'd had many conversations where I made it crystal clear that I loved being a father to Mark and that Lisa meant the world to me, no matter the circumstances. I told him time and again that my love for her and her son transcended such trivial concerns. Alan had also met his now wife, Sarah, through his network of work friends. Their love story was like something out of a romantic comedy where workplace acquaintances turned into lifelong partners. The chemistry between them was undeniable, and it didn't take long for their friendship to blossom into something much more significant. I've spent my fair share of time with Sarah over the years, but we never really bonded much with her. You see, Sarah had a serious drinking issue, which sometimes led to her getting angry and blurting out a lot of secrets that she would later claim that she couldn't remember. On one such occasion, while we were all out drinking and when my brother wasn't around, she confessed that he had trouble satisfying her in bed. Apparently, he was struggling to maintain his performance, and this left her wanting more. She mentioned how she had been hooking up with strangers sometimes. I was taken aback by what I heard, and the next day, after we were both sober, I decided to confront her about it. I didn't want to bring this up to my brother without confirming first, as I knew how much he loved her and it could potentially ruin their relationship. Sarah denied ever saying such things and swiftly changed the topic. I decided to let it slide at the time as I couldn't do anything, especially when I had no proof. If I did tell my brother then, he could have chalked it up to her talking gibberish while she was drunk. Although I let it go at that moment, those words have always lingered in the back of my mind all these years. As a result, I've always kept my distance from her since then. Now, coming on to the incident that happened this week, every year our family from all over the country travels back to our hometown, no matter where we are, to celebrate my mother's birthday. It's become a family tradition now, and it's something we have been doing for as long as I can remember. No matter where we are or how busy life gets, we make sure to mark that special day by being with our mother. This year, I decided to take an earlier flight, so I arrived in our hometown before everyone else. You see, Lisa and Mark were scheduled to fly in a bit later because Mark had this important school assignment to finish and hand in. So I had some time to spend with our family before they got there. Alan and Sarah made it too, and it was shaping up to be a great get-together. We were all looking forward to spending some quality time together. The atmosphere was filled with laughter, stories, and that feeling of togetherness that only a family gathering can bring. Just a few days before my mom's birthday, I drove to the airport to pick up Lisa and Mark. Even though we had only been apart for a few days, as soon as Mark saw me, he sprinted towards me with his arms wide open. The pure joy on his face made my heart swell with happiness. We drove back home where my parents welcomed them with open arms. Mark had always been a favorite in my family, and my parents treated him like their own grandson. In fact, my father had even spoken with me this time about having Mark spend holidays with them so he could learn valuable skills while helping out on our family farm. Of course, my father would pay him for his work, but it was also about teaching Mark important life lessons. On the other hand, I noticed that Alan didn't get up to greet my wife and son. Sarah, who was helping my mother out in the kitchen with the preparations, rushed to hug them. I thought maybe Alan was just tired that day from helping around the house, so I didn't pay it much mind. The big day arrived, and we had all worked hard the night before to make sure everything was ready so my mom wouldn't have to lift a finger on her special day. Our close relatives and my mom's old college friends started showing up, and everything was going great. Some of the guests had children of their own, and I introduced Mark to them. The kids quickly ran off to play around our farm, shouting and having a good time. We gathered to have lunch, enjoying the well-cooked meal, when suddenly we heard Mark scream. Lisa and I rushed outside to find him on the ground with scraped knees. It turned out the kids were playing on the swing, and, as kids do, someone had given him an accidental push. The entire group had rushed outside as well, looking concerned. That's when Alan, out of nowhere, said, "Well, if he was really your son, he would know that men don't cry over little things like this. Why are you even taking care of some other man's responsibility?" Everyone fell into an eerie silence. Blood drained from my face as I couldn't believe what my brother had just spoken. My parents stared at him, wide-eyed, horrified by what he just said. Lisa, meanwhile, looked like she was on the verge of tears as she tended to Mark's wounds. My anger was boiling over, and for the first time in ages, I had an urge to punch my brother. Standing up, I couldn't hold back, and I spat out, "What would you even know about having a child of your own? You struggle with erectile dysfunction, and this is why your wife cheats on you." I saw my brother's face change color, and he looked like he had been punched in the guts. Sarah looked around, embarrassed. I smirked and quickly scooped up Mark, who was still crying in pain, to make my way inside. If my brother could utter such cruel words in front of my son, I didn't want to be around him anymore. My son deserved better than this, so I told everyone we would be leaving. I rushed to pack our things as Lisa tried to change our flight booking to head back home. Thankfully, the airline accommodated our request to change our return dates. I went downstairs to talk to some of the guests so I could tell them goodbye before we headed to the airport. Some of them understood my sudden departure and let me know that I was doing the right thing. My mother, however, was doing her best to convince me to stay and let go of the situation. I told her it would never happen until my brother apologized for his insensitive comments about my son. Meanwhile, I noticed Sarah and Mark having an argument on the porch. Their voices rose, but I just wanted to get my son out of this situation as soon as possible. I called for a cab to take us to the airport. While my dad offered to drive us, I didn't want him to be away from my mom on her birthday, so I hugged them goodbye, apologized for the incident, and we left. Once we were back in New York, me and Lisa could breathe in relief. I was concerned that this situation might have affected her more than me, especially since my brother had publicly humiliated her and our son. Mark, being a kid, was thrilled to be back home, eager to play his video games. Lisa had kept her composure in front of everyone, but now that we were back home, she broke down in tears. Since then, I have been overwhelmed with guilt for putting her through this. When I entered this marriage, I knew some people might question my decision to accept our son, but I never imagined it would be my own brother who would do this. In the days that followed, Lisa, Mark, and I focused on mending our family bonds and trying to put this incident behind us. We decided to make the most of our time off and enjoy each other's company. I spent quality moments with Mark, and Lisa's smile returned. Today, suddenly I received a text from my brother. The message was far from friendly. It accused me of ruining his life. It appeared that my revelation about his wife's secret had led to a confrontation between them, which had turned their world upside down. Sarah had been unfaithful for a long time with multiple partners since the beginning of their relationship, and the truth was finally out. I have chosen not to reply to him because it seems pointless. His message contained absolutely no apology for how he treated Mark. Shortly afterward, I received a call from our mother. She seemed quite upset and told me that Alan was contemplating divorcing Sarah. She tried to urge me to reconcile with him by reminding me that family should last forever, but I firmly shut her down by reminding her that Alan hadn't even bothered to apologize yet for what he had told me about my son. Mom tried to justify it by saying that Alan wasn't a parent yet. Hence, he didn't know saying that would harm my child. She also mentioned how relatives in our hometown were gossiping, with some feeling pity for my brother. According to them, even though Alan didn't harm me directly, I had ruined his life by revealing the secret. So, Reddit, am I the a-hole for exposing my sister-in-law's hidden secret and potentially affecting my brother's life? Update 1. It's been a few weeks since the incident and something interesting happened today, so I am here with an update. Since the incident, there has been an eerie silence between my brother and me. I never replied back to him, and he didn't try to contact me further. Our lives slowly went back to normalcy as Lisa and I got back to work and Mark resumed school. And then, out of nowhere, I received an unexpected call from Alan today. I was out with my colleagues, so I couldn't pick up his call. When I reached back home, I gave him a call hoping for a positive outcome. I figured he would have had plenty of time now to cool down and think with his head straight. But as soon as Alan picked up my call, he shouted, "Congratulations, bro! You have successfully ruined my life now." He continued saying how he had talked with Sarah and asked her for a divorce, thinking that she would beg for his forgiveness. Instead, she immediately complied and was ready to go through with it. This seemed to have really pissed him off. I mean, I got his point of view as he was the one getting cheated on, but at the same time, I didn't understand why he was still pining for someone who didn't respect their relationship enough to stay loyal to him. I could hear the noise and laughter from the pub in the background, which indicated that he was not exactly in a state to have a rational conversation. Alan's voice was filled with bitterness, and it was clear that he was looking for someone to vent to. But I was in no mood to be his punching bag. Despite all that he was saying, I had no desire to engage in another pointless argument with him. The distance between us had grown, and I had no intention of bridging it any time soon. I let him know that unless he personally apologized to me and my wife, we were done with him. Alan snickered and started saying something, but I couldn't stand to listen to his arrogance any longer, so I cut his call and blocked him. I knew my brother well, and he was always stubborn. He would never apologize unless he thought he had done something wrong. In this case, he clearly believed he was blameless. I talked with Lisa regarding this, and we both have agreed we will be severing all ties with my brother. It wasn't just about our own feelings, but also a concern for Mark. We didn't want my brother's bitterness to affect our son. Our next step is to talk to my parents regarding this. We have a plan to explain our reasons for the decision, so hopefully they will understand. But if my mom continues to support my brother despite his actions, we have to be prepared for a more distant relationship with her too. This is definitely a hard decision for us, but she has always favored my older brother. I think it's time I put my own family's needs over others, and I know in my heart we have to think about Mark first. Update 2. As promised, I'm back with an update. So we called up my parents to talk it all out. Lisa and I had discussed that it was important for us to convey our feelings and stick to facts, even though this situation was going to be difficult to discuss. I delved into how the incident at my mother's birthday party had changed something fundamental in our family dynamics. My brother's actions had wounded not just us, but also Mark, who had witnessed it all. The words stung, and the hurt was real. I didn't want my son ever growing up thinking that he wasn't family to me. He might not be my biological son, but I did help Lisa raise him since he was 3 years old. After the incident, I was also planning to officially adopt him, and I had started the formalities with my lawyer. My mother seemed to be quite conflicted, and I could feel her dilemma. A mother stuck in the middle, not wanting to take sides, but I had to emphasize the importance of our decision, how it was about safeguarding our family's well-being. I let them know that they could continue to have their own relationship with my brother, but that we were going to keep our space from him. As we spoke, I could sense my parents' frustration, sadness, and confusion. My father didn't say much during our conversation, but when I finished speaking, he made it clear that he fully supported my choice. He expressed his love for Mark and mentioned how proud he was to have a grandson like him. He reminded me again about his plans to spend time with Mark during the summer holidays so he could teach him about farm life. Lisa was happy to hear this and agreed that it would be great for Mark to spend time with my parents in the upcoming holidays. On the other hand, my mother had stayed quiet for some time. When I asked if she was okay, her voice was shaky and it was obvious she was crying. She pleaded that even though she respected my decision, she didn't want me to completely cut ties with my brother. She continued saying how I could have a separate relationship with my brother during this time of difficulty. Despite my mother's plea, I made it clear that cutting ties with my brother was the right decision for my family. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but the emotional toll his actions had taken on us, especially on Mark, couldn't be ignored. I explained to my mother that our son's well-being and happiness were our top priorities. Also, if my brother needed my support, then he could have apologized to me first before this situation got any further. She continued to cry as we talked, her feelings torn between supporting her children and not wanting to see our family divided. It was clear that our decision had affected her deeply. My father tried his best to reassure her, but also let her know in no uncertain times that my brother was the one who started this. We assured my mother that cutting off my brother from our lives wouldn't affect our relationship with her. We promised her that we would keep her updated on our lives, and Mark's well-being. We definitely wouldn't be attending any family events in the future if my brother was attending as well, because we didn't want the toxicity to affect our son's childhood or create more strife in our family. As we bid our parents goodbye, we knew that our decision had caused a deep divide, not only between us and my brother, but within our family as a whole. The days ahead could be rough, and only time will tell whether we can find a way to heal and move forward. Meanwhile, I'm just happy that I have a loving wife and an amazing son, and I will do anything to protect them. I will post an update for you guys only if something happens. Update 3. Thanks to everyone for your feedback on my last post. This post seems to have gone viral, and I am getting multiple requests from strangers for an update, so here it goes. It's been some time now since my last update, and I am happy to say that my family and I are doing great. I officially adopted Mark a few months ago. Although the legal process was long and arduous, the moment finally came when he was legally my son. Now, no one can question me ever again. We celebrated this occasion by flying our family out to New York to celebrate with us. It had been some time since we'd seen them, and it felt like the right time to reunite and share our happiness. My parents, who had supported my decision to adopt Mark completely, were overjoyed. It was a heartwarming sight to see the smiles on their faces as they spent time with Mark. Mark even taught my father to play video games. It was comical to see my dad sitting with my son and playing Minecraft. My mother, who initially had mixed feelings about our decision to distance ourselves from my brother, began to see the positive change it had brought into our lives. Mark, Lisa, and I were a close-knit family, and I could tell my mother was relieved to see how well we were doing without the negativity that had once clouded our lives. Regarding my brother, I heard from my parents that he had filed for divorce from Sarah. Evidently, their relationship had reached a breaking point, as Sarah had attempted to impose a set of conditions, but those demands were swiftly dismissed once it was revealed in court that she had been involved with multiple sexual partners. It seemed like their marriage had unraveled due to a series of other issues as well, which they couldn't overcome eventually. I wanted to support my brother during this challenging time, but the divide between us still remained. It was hard to reach out given the hurtful things he had said and never apologized. Our mother had tried to mediate several times over the years, hoping for some reconciliation, but I have quickly shut her down. My focus has been on my son and our family's well-being. I hope he can find happiness one day and move forward with his life. Meanwhile, my wife and I have been doing great. Every morning, I wake up feeling joyous, watching her lay next to me, her peaceful face a reminder of the love we share. We have always found strength in one another, no matter what challenges life throws our way. With my parents now here to take care of Mark, Lisa and I are finally planning for a long overdue vacation, just the two of us. It feels like a well-deserved break after all that we've gone through in the last few years. We're both excited about the prospect of some alone time away from the daily responsibilities. We will be visiting Newport, Rhode Island, which was the place where I had proposed to my wife, so we can enjoy the tranquil sound of the waves, take long walks on the beach, and simply relax in each other's company. It holds a special place in our hearts and will also give us a chance to reconnect with one another. We're excited about our upcoming vacation and thankful for the way our lives have turned out. This might be my last update regarding this incident, as I want to close this chapter and focus on my life ahead. Stay tuned for more stories from Argo Relationships.